Good morning, ladies and gentlemen in California. My name is Krijn, Poppe, and it's a pleasure for me to speak to you here from Wageningen. My apologies that I can't be with you today, but we have this ICT technology, so I hope to use the next 10 minutes to give you an update on our work on ICT in Europe and especially in Wageningen. Talking on ICT, if you go to a farm nowadays, then you will see a lot of technology enter a modern tractor, and you see a lot of monitors, or in the middle of this slide you see the dairy, the milk robot, 20,000 sold from this brand, Dutch brand Lely only, which harvests milk, so to say. It collects the milk of the cow, but it's of course also a harvesting machine for a lot of data to treat and support, manage the individual cow. Technology is also used to link the farmer with the consumer in tracing and tracking, but also to provide information. The idea is that you take your apple to the retail store and you scan an apple and you know where it is grown, where it comes from, which type of pesticides have been used, or if it is organic. So in that sense, that's wonderful for providing that information, or also to set up web shops in a short supply chain. So strong ICT trends, I don't have to explain them in detail to you, and otherwise go to the SRII website where we have put a list. There's the satellite and the remote sensing technology, the geoinformatics, sensor technology, of course, the robotics I mentioned, computer vision, the biosensors, bioinformatics. There's a whole area in now the Internet of Things, where even every cow gets its own IP address, and can send an email, probably get a boo bag, but you can also measure her heart rate or whatever. Cloud computing, smartphones, social media, web of data, even e-science. You're probably even more familiar with that than I am. The partners in the food chain are all challenged by this technology. So it's not only farming. As you see in this slide, it's also the input suppliers that work with this Internet of Things technology, or on genetics, or on nanotechnology. So that's the John Deere's, the Monsantos. You have the farmers who mostly compete on cost prices and have very often, at least in Europe, small regional software providers, the logistic solution providers who try to create service models on the basis of ICT, the food processors, and the retailers who hope that with these services and these technologies it helps them in the loyalty issue, that you come back tomorrow because you were there today. There are also a number of public challenges, or they could also be seen as the business of tomorrow, feeding the world, 9 billion people in 2050 in a sustainable way. Also the food safety, of course, clear in China, but also in the US, in Europe, we have from time to time some problems in that area. And there is the health system, of course, if the consumers, the health issue of obesity, diabetes 2 and other diseases which are clearly linked also to the intake of food and the type of food. So can we use this technology to help the consumer make a more healthy choice? What I see is roughly 3 innovation pathways in ICT. You can use the technology to improve the current systems. That's what you see in this precision farming, in the milk robots, the sensors, the Internet of Things and the machinery. That leads to concepts like predictive maintenance, prescriptive farming, which is I think pioneered by Monsanto, John Deere, that type of companies, leading to contract farming. There's a second area that is I think more disruptive, the new farm and food technology systems. Some of them clearly driven on ICT, others less, but there are plant factories, vertical farming, the use of insects, of algae for food or at least for feed, and also food printers, clearly ICT driven, meat replacement in the US soyland, this type of disruptive ideas on how we eat. And then a third category in which I would like to discuss a number of things in detail with you, that is the issues in data exchange, because it's not automatically the case that the company or the machine that collects the data also makes full use of that data. Well, the value of data often is based on aggregation or on combining different data streams, and that asks for organizational solutions to get that done. I'll give you two examples from an area that we call agricultural business collaboration and data exchange facilities, which is of course a nice to remember abbreviation, ABCDEF. One is the Farm Digital project that we do, not only in the Netherlands, also in South Africa and Costa Rica, and we're working with an organization that has a solution called iReplace. That's a prototype to share data between farmers, growers on one hand, and the auditors of the food inspection schemes or organic food, and the retailers and the food processors and the importers in the other way. And the second one I come later to is FiSpace. That's a more disruptive solution that promotes business collaboration for the IoT data, also using the concept of an app store. First, looking to this Farm Digital project, it's essentially about making the compliance to these food safety or fair trade schemes much more easy for farmers and for the inspectors, the auditors, because you see that this whole organic or fair trade or food safety programs like Global Gap or the British Retail Consortium standard are paper intensive. Growers, farmers have to provide a lot of data to the companies, but especially also to the auditors, and auditors have to check that data, do that now mainly by hand, not by programs, and have to prepare themselves for an on-farm visit. And then the data, of course, has to go into the food chain, as I explained earlier. And the idea is that we replace the manual or the website-based data entry, where farms fill out their forms in this diagram with the red lines, that we replace that with digital communication based on electronic data interchange standards, that data are combined, and that also gives us as institute the possibility to provide benchmark data back to these farmers so that they compare and learn from other farmers. The second example is on this business collaboration that comes from a large European project from the European Commission in the Future Internet program. And what we noticed is that a lot of the big companies have gone fully digital with their enterprise resource packages and other systems, but that the data exchange with farmers is still on paper. You see that in agriculture, you see it partly also in logistics, you see it also between the government and farmers, and in the future more data will be exchanged, like this Internet of Things data, so there is a need to have a system where you can easily set up a business collaboration and exchange that data, and that is what FiSpace is doing. Imagine that you think about LinkedIn or Facebook or that type of social media, where you can then specify a workflow, a contract between two businesses, and then based on that farms or these two businesses can stream data to each other. Could be invoice data or Internet of Things data, sensor data, and that data could then be combined also in apps that work on these combined data streams. And that's essentially what we do there with this FiSpace program. So you see it in this diagram, where in the bottom you see the food chain that I presented earlier, from, let's say, the tractor company to the retailer. The data from a lot of these parties in the future will go into the cloud, and if then the owner of the data makes that possible to the app developer, then these apps could combine the data and provide additional new services to the users in the food chain. The data is owned by, in our concept, the farmer or whoever owns the data, and it's only the messages, the addresses that we will keep, so the privacy issues are not that big, I think. What we do is offering a service to connect companies so that they can stream their data, and for app developers there are essentially three advantages. They don't have to negotiate themselves on combining these data streams. They get a lot of generic enablers so that they don't have to program themselves their cloud access or their web shop that is in standardized software available. And it provides them with a European or a global market instead of their traditional regional market. But in that sense it is also disruptive for the current management systems. And based on that concept we help the businesses in the food chain to create value or to save cost so that they can do their business better and use that easier data exchange in their business and commission, if needed, new apps. Of course, such a system which is currently programmed needs a business model. So the idea is that it operates a little bit like the Linux system. You have a foundation that has the open source software, but that then ICT companies or others could make an instance of that software and see if they finance that out of asking money to the app developers or the large companies that do this with their farmers, or even charge farmers or go to an advertising model. That's to be seen how companies take that up. For the moment it's of course a research program. That brings me to the end of my talk and the take-home message. Actually I have three for you. First of all, as I hope I made clear in the beginning, that ICT is revolutionizing agricultural and the whole food chain, like the tractor and the pesticides or the supermarket did in the 1950s. There are, second point, different innovation pathways, innovation for precision farming. There is the new farm systems, and the thing that I have discussed with you in more detail, the data exchange. There in this data exchange, the agricultural business collaboration and data exchange facilities are an interesting infrastructure, I think, that is much needed to harvest the advantages of the ICT, like the car needed the motorways. In the same way, I think that the apps and the ICT needs an infrastructure to exchange data. That's are my main messages for today. It's a pity that I can't answer your questions live, but we will provide my email address, so feel free to contact. We are open for collaboration on ideas, on content, on exploitation, even investment if you're interested. And I wish you a very useful seminar today in California. Good morning.